Hello, welcome to the video on Chapter 11 about personal computers. And so by way of introduction here, the first thing I'll say is that in 2015, 73% of Americans owned a personal computer. Now that's actually the exact same amount as owned in 2005. So the ownership of personal computers has stayed pretty even for about as long as they have been really a large part of our American culture here. Now, the U.S. Census Bureau estimates that by 2020, so 2 years from now, more than half of America will be what's called a digital native, meaning that they will never have known a world without personal computers. I myself am not quite a digital native. I do remember a couple years throughout my childhood where I did not have a personal computer in my life or in my household. And now, as far as kind of how personal computers have developed, although quality has risen recently, the price has fallen of those personal computers. So we've seen better and better personal computers as we've seen lower and lower prices. Now, for a little bit of background here, the first practical use of a computer was to help that U.S. Census Bureau compile its 1890 results, and those early computers were actually called calculators. And then the first general purpose computer came out at the end of World War II. That's when they first started coming out more and more and more. And then the next computer that came to market took up about 400 square feet of floor space. It's roughly the size of a studio apartment. And then Apple's first PC was in 1976. Of course, no presentation on personal computers would be complete without talking about Apple. So what is a PC? That's really the question here. And in our culture today, a lot of things are smart. A PC could be a smartphone, it could be a tablet, it could be a laptop, or it could be a desktop computer as well. And then how do these computers work? Well, essentially you have your software, your programs, that tells the hardware. So that's your central processing unit, your memory, your monitors, your printers, stuff like that. How to manipulate information or data. And then that software also manipulates content that's produced by the computer. So this can be documents, this can be spreadsheets, this can be movies, this can be music. The possibilities are really endless there. As far as recent developments in PCs, personal computers are definitely not going anywhere. They're really here to stay in our culture. They're a fantastic help to us in our day-to-day life. One thing that kind of has happened recently is we've had a loss of that middle ground of personal computers. We've got our high-end options that are thousands of dollars, and with our low end, it's around $300 really. But we don't really have like a good middle ground of computers that are in between there, but offer some of the high-end options and some of the low-end options without getting too crazy. One thing that has been happening recently is that Chromebook is really giving Apple a run for its money. That's specifically in the education community. Personally, I can remember when I was in high school, we had laptop carts that were full of Apple computers, and then I recently went back and worked in education in my hometown, and they had all Chromebooks for the students now. So really, Apple has kind of gone out, and Chromebook has come in specifically in the education community. Recently, also the Microsoft Surface is known as the strongest 2-in-1 machine. It is sort of a hybrid between a tablet and a computer. It's got that detachable keyboard that really distinguishes it there, as well as a higher processing capability than most of your, especially Apple and iPad tablets do. There have also been recently a lot of improvements to displays. You're seeing specifically on laptops and desktops more and more touch screens, and then on the smartphones and the tablets you're seeing better and more responsive touch screens. You're also seeing curved glass monitors specifically for your desktop computers. Those are a little bit more ergonomic. They also have a greater surface area so that you can have more content on your screen at once. And then we're also seeing, leaps and bounds of improvements in our virtual reality with the virtual reality goggles and stuff like that. Recently also, the Microsoft operating system is on 9 out of 10 personal computers. Again, that's our laptops and our desktops. And Microsoft is really moving towards Office 365, which is a web-based software that's designed to compete with Google Docs and be similar to Google Docs. So we're also seeing people are moving towards the cloud there and having web-based storage instead of local-based storage in your hard drives or your thumb drives and stuff like that. We're also seeing improvements in voice recognition. With Apple, they've got Siri. Google has their Hey Google Assistant, and Microsoft has Cortana. And those are also improving by leaps and bounds in what they can recognize and then what they can do with the commands that you give them. The current status of the of personal computers here in 2015 in America, $279 billion was spent on computers and equipment. That's just in the year of 2015, $279 billion. So it's definitely a high grossing industry. As far as actual hardware within the computer, Intel is leading sales in computer chips. They are creating and selling 80% of the computer chips that are used in PCs. And then as far as your laptops and your desktop goes, Lenovo is leading those sales. And then as far as software goes, Microsoft is leading there with their Office suite. So what do we need to watch for here coming out going into the future? One thing we need to look for is faster and smaller chips. And we also need to see if Moore's law will finally be broken. The founder of Intel, Gordon Moore, predicted that in 1965 the number of components in integrated circuits will double each year, and while prices drop. So this has been true for more than 50 years. But some people predict that we're kind of reaching a breaking point there where the technology that we have just can't become any smaller. It'll be as small as it can possibly go. Another thing to look for here is new cords. As far as USB-C, which is a different type of USB connector that kind of solves the common scourge, making sure that you have your USB connector plugged in the right way on the first try. And with USB-C, it can be plugged in either way. Another thing to look out for here is that PC sales will continue to increase as end user spending falls. Another thing here is to see if tablets will pick up some slack in the kind of overtake the actual desktop and personal computer laptop market. And then if it's not a tablet, then what is it going to be? Is that where the iPad Pro and the Microsoft Surface, those 2-in-1 machines, will come in? And two more things to look for here are the continued virtual reality improvements. That is a very new software that's being developed, and very really new improvement as far even within the world of personal computers. And then also wearable devices. So Google tried to implement their Google Glass with their glasses, and that sort of fell flat. However, Apple has been doing their Apple Watch, and then we've seen other competitors such as Samsung come up with other wearable technologies as well. So with all of that in mind, the question that I will pose here is, with half of the American population being a digital native, which again is somebody who does not know a life or a world without PCs, and what will be their impact and their view of the world that we live on? Again, only knowing a world with PCs.